But first, a man on a killing spree just south of Tampa caught and killed in Hamilton County, the frightening shootout that ended a tragic series of events.
June 24, 2024, 8:53 p.m. Javante Bryce posts one word on Facebook: love. 22 minutes later, his mother is dead, shot 3 times inside a Motel 6 in Bradenton, Florida. At 9:36 p.m., he posts again, "I love you, bae, see you in hell," and tags his cousin. 4 minutes after that, she's bleeding out in an SUV at a family cookout. By 10:05, he's killed again, posting, "Pig, I love you, but you had to go." 3 women, 3 murders, all documented in real time while thousands watched online. This is the story of a man who didn't just destroy his family, he made sure the world was watching. Welcome to True Crime Malice. Hit subscribe and drop your city in the comments. Let's see where you're watching from. This isn't just another murder case. This is what happens when warning signs get ignored, when family loyalty becomes dangerous, and when someone's breakdown plays out in front of thousands online and nobody can stop it. Javante Bryce didn't hide what he was doing. He announced it, posted it, timestamped every kill like he wanted witnesses. His mother tried to save him by moving her entire family into a motel just to keep distance. His sister talked him down from killing his ex-girlfriend hours before the rampage started. But by the time deputies caught up with him on a highway near Georgia, 3 women were already gone. If you're here for the cases that dig deeper than the headlines, the timelines that don't add up, and the details everyone else glosses over, you're exactly where you need to be. Here's what this case really reveals. Javante Bryce didn't just kill his family, he narrated his own descent into madness, leaving behind a digital confession that shows exactly how obsession, untreated instability, and ignored red flags turned love into a death sentence. His Facebook posts weren't cries for help, they were announcements, timestamps that matched the exact moments lives were ending. By the end of this story, you'll know exactly how a former college athlete and aspiring rapper became a family annihilator in less than 2 hours. You'll see the warning signs his loved ones missed, the confrontation that should have ended everything before it started, and the one question investigators still can't answer. Why did he choose the people who loved him most? Stick with me, because what happened that night in Bradenton will stay with you long after this video ends. Before we get into what happened that night, you need to understand who these women were, because they weren't strangers. They weren't random targets. They were the people Javante Bryce claimed to love most. First, Tanisha Scott, 48 years old, mother of 11 children, grandmother to 8. Born July 18, 1975 in Bradenton, she grew up in a large family that valued faith and connection. She lost both her parents early, which shaped her into the kind of woman who never gave up on anyone, especially her own kids. Friends described her as the glue that held everyone together. She loved family gatherings, trips to the casino with friends, and any excuse to bring people under one roof. But by 2024, Tanisha was living in a Motel 6 on 67th Street, Circle East in Bradenton. Not because she was homeless, but because she was hiding. She'd moved her younger daughters and her boyfriend out of their home to escape her son's increasingly dangerous behavior. Even then, she stayed in contact with Javante, calling him daily, checking on him. She believed if she kept him close enough, she could save him. That belief cost her everything. Then there's Sequoia Starquez Jankila Bryce, known to everyone as Koya, 29 years old, Javante's cousin. They were born the same year, grew up together, shared childhood summers and long talks that made them feel more like siblings than relatives. Koya was warm, dependable, the kind of person everyone called when they needed help. But somewhere along the way their bond shifted. Family members would later describe their connection as complicated, rooted in years of closeness, but twisted by emotional dependence and secrecy. When Javante's life started falling apart after his marriage ended, Koya was one of the few who didn't turn away. She checked on him, listened to him, tried to be the voice of calm. But as his instability deepened, so did his obsession with her. When she tried to distance herself, deleting photos, changing routines, limiting contact, he saw it as betrayal. On the night of June 24th, she was at a cookout celebrating her birthday, surrounded by family and laughter. She had no idea he was already on his way. And finally, Sherelle Carter, 31 years old. She wasn't related to Javanti. She wasn't an ex. She was simply the new partner of one of his former girlfriends. Wrong place, wrong night, wrong connection to a man who had already decided who needed to die. These three women, Tatanisha, Koya, and Sherelle, weren't random victims. They were the people who knew Javanti best, who had tried to help him, who had loved him in different ways. And on June 24th, 2024, that love became the reason they died. So who was Javanti Bryce? Born in 1996, Javanti grew up in Bradenton, Florida, a city known for tight-knit communities and deep family ties. To those who knew him early on, he was quiet but driven, competitive, the kind of kid who stood out on the track. He earned the nickname Scooter, a name that stuck with him through his teenage years and into adulthood. It suggested familiarity, affection, someone people felt close to. He attended Savannah State University, where he joined the track and field team. For a while, it looked like he was heading somewhere. He had discipline, focus, the kind of determination his mother Tatanisha had always praised. But college didn't last. After leaving Savannah State, something shifted. The structure he'd known on the track disappeared, and Javanti came back to Bradenton different. Friends said he seemed distant, restless, like he was searching for something to ground him again. That's when he turned to music. Under the name Scooter, he started rapping, recording tracks in local studios, posting them online, slowly building a small following. His lyrics weren't about money or fame, they were about struggle, loyalty, faith, and pain. Lines that hinted at the life he was living, the battles he was fighting inside. But while his music showed promise, his personal life was collapsing. By 2024, Javanti's criminal record told a darker story. Burglary with assault, domestic violence with strangulation, violations of probation. Police reports painted the picture of a man at war with himself and everyone around him. His wife, Kaya Blackman, had asked him to move out, saying his behavior had become too dangerous. Out of concern, Tatisha took him in. But soon after, she realized his presence put everyone at risk, including her younger daughters. So she made the painful decision to move her family into that Motel 6, hoping distance would keep them safe while still allowing her to care for him. Even then, she didn't cut him off. She called, she checked in, she believed her son could still be saved. But Javanti wasn't the same person anymore. His social media posts swung wildly. Some days filled with scripture and redemption, other days laced with rage and cryptic warnings. He was unraveling in real time, and the people closest to him were about to pay the price. Now here's where the story gets complicated and uncomfortable. On June 23rd, his Facebook posts started shifting. Religious messages mixed with frustration, references to storms, pain, and suffering. One post read, "The only relationship I know I'll never lose is with the Lord." To anyone scrolling past, it might have looked like someone going through a rough patch, leaning on faith, but to those who knew him, the tone felt off, desperate, like he was saying goodbye. The day before the murders, he posted videos of two little girls, his daughters. The caption read, "I may be breaking broken hundreds of women hearts, but I'll never break y'all hearts. I love you so, so much." Both y'all first words were "Dada, my babies." It was tender, emotional, the kind of post a father makes when he's proud, but looking back, it reads like a farewell. Then came the evening of June 24th. Around 9 p.m., Javanti showed up at the Palmetto Trace apartments where his sister and his ex-girlfriend, the mother of his children, were staying. He walked in, looked directly at his ex, and said 5 words that should have ended everything right there. "I have to kill you." His sister immediately stepped in. She talked to him, calmed him down, somehow convinced him to leave without pulling the trigger. Later, she told investigators he was acting very strange. His eyes were different, his energy was off. At one point he asked if he could take a shower. They said no. He didn't argue, he just left. But he didn't go home. He didn't cool off. He got in his car and drove straight to the Motel 6, where his mother was hiding from him. At 8:53 p.m., he posted one word on Facebook: love. 22 minutes later, Tanisha Scott was dead. 9:15 p.m.
Walked into that hotel room, looked at the mother and said, "I'm sorry." She asked, "What did you do?" And he shoots her 3 times in front of the boyfriend and these 2 innocent young juveniles.
Javonte doesn't say another word. He turns and walks out, leaving his mother bleeding on the floor. A witness staying in the room below, David Valentine, hears the screams and rushes upstairs. He tries to help, but it's too late. Tanisha looks at him, and in that moment, he said it was like she knew. She succumbed to her injuries right there. 9:36 p.m., Javonte posts on Facebook, "I love you, bae, see you in hell." He tags Koya Bryce. 9:40 p.m., 26th Street Court East, Palmetto. Kaya is at a family cookout celebrating her birthday. Music playing, people laughing, the kind of night that's supposed to be safe. She's getting ready to leave, walking toward her SUV parked outside. That's when Javonte pulls up. She sees him. Maybe she freezes, maybe she tries to say something. It doesn't matter. He opens fire. Neighbors hear the shots and come running. Palmetto police arrive within minutes and start life-saving measures, but Koya is barely holding on. She's rushed to the hospital, where she dies about an hour later. 10:00 p.m., Javonte posts again, "Pig, I love you, but you had to go." 10:04 p.m., 4800 51st Street East, Bradenton. This is the home of another ex-girlfriend and her new partner, Sherelle Carter. Javonte walks inside. Witnesses say he didn't hesitate. He shot Sherelle and left. She was taken to HCA Florida, Blake Hospital, where she died from her injuries. 3 women, 3 different locations, all within 50 minutes, and the entire time Javonte was posting like he wanted the world to keep score. But he wasn't done yet. At 11:22 p.m. he posted again, tagging his estranged wife, Kaya D. Blackman, "Baby, I love you too." Then, just after midnight, his final post appeared. "Since I can't catch you, I'ma catch your brother." He was heading north, toward Georgia, and investigators believe he had at least one more person on his list. By 1:30 a.m. on June 25th, law enforcement across Florida had been tracking Javonte for hours. A statewide BOLO, "Be on the lookout," had been issued. His vehicle was flagged. Multiple agencies were coordinating. Detectives knew he was heading toward Georgia, possibly to kill another ex-girlfriend. They knew he was armed. They knew he wasn't stopping on his own. When Hamilton County deputies finally spotted his car on Interstate 75 near the Georgia state line, more than 240 miles from Bradenton, they moved in fast. They conducted a felony traffic stop at an Exxon parking lot in Jasper, Florida. Lights flashing, guns drawn, orders shouted. But here's the part that changes everything. Javonte wasn't alone. There was a woman in the passenger seat.
Now, Hamilton County Sheriff's deputies, they spotted the car around 1:30 in the morning. That's Bryce's car. It was on I-75, and they say Bryce voluntarily pulled over into the Exxon Mobil here after seeing the deputies following him. Now, Sheriff Reed says Bryce was in the car with another woman. They both put their hands up as they were told, but when Bryce got out of the car, Sheriff says he started shooting at deputies. About 40 to 50 rounds were fired between the deputies and Bryce was ultimately killed in the gunfire.
She wasn't injured, she wasn't charged, but her presence raises questions that still don't have clear answers. Did she know what he'd done before getting in that car? Did she try to stop him? Did she see him post on Facebook between each killing? And if she was there the whole time, why didn't she call for help? Sheriff Wells said they didn't know her relationship to Javonte at the time of the press conference. But one thing was certain. She had a front row seat to the final moments of a man who had just destroyed his entire family. What she told investigators that night could be the key to understanding what really drove Javante Bryce over the edge. But Sheriff Rick Wells would later say that Javante seemed to have an agenda. He knew exactly who he wanted to kill, and he had no trouble finding them. But investigators believe his list wasn't finished. They learned he was traveling to Georgia with the intent to kill yet another ex-girlfriend. If deputies hadn't stopped him on that highway, there's no telling how many more lives would have been lost. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement launched an investigation into the deputy-involved shooting. Standard procedure anytime officers use lethal force. But there was no question about what happened. Javante got out of that car shooting. The deputies did what they had to do, and just like that, the rampage that started at 9:15 p.m. in a Bradenton motel room ended on a dark stretch of highway near the Georgia line. Javante Bryce went out the same way he lived his final hours, violent, defiant, and alone. But for the families he left behind, the nightmare was just beginning. By sunrise on June 25th, the news had spread across Bradenton and Palmetto like wildfire. 3 women dead, a killer stopped on a highway hundreds of miles away, and a community left asking one question: how did this happen? Reporters gathered outside the Motel 6 on 67th Street, Circle East. Yellow tape surrounded the building, shattered windows, bloodstains. The place where Tanisha Scott had tried to hide her family from her own son now stood as a crime scene. Down the street, outside Koya Bryce's home on 26th Street East, candles and flowers began appearing on the sidewalk. Friends who had seen her laughing at a cookout just hours earlier couldn't process that she was gone. Some still couldn't say her name without breaking down. At a press conference that morning, Manatee County Sheriff Rick Wells stood before cameras and delivered the grim details. His voice was steady, but the weight of what had happened was clear. "This family is devastated," he said. "This is going to be a very difficult thing for them to overcome." He explained that investigators were reviewing 911 calls, interviewing relatives, and combing through Javante's social media posts to try to understand what set him off. But even then, Wells admitted they might never know.
We don't know why he chose to kill his loved ones, and we may never know, but we're going to continue to investigate. It's a very fluid and active investigation.
The victims' names were released slowly out of respect for the families. Tanisha Scott, 48. Sakuya Starquez, Jonquila Bryce, 29. Sherelle Carter, 31. 3 women with families, children, people who loved them. Gone in a single night. Days later, services were held at St. John Deliverance Temple. Rows of pews filled with loved ones dressed in white. Photos of Tatisha and Koya stood near the altar, surrounded by flowers and the sound of quiet sobs. Pastors spoke about faith, forgiveness, and the pain of unanswered questions. But there were no easy words, no explanations that made sense. In the crowd sat children who had lost a mother, siblings who had lost a sister, and a community still trying to understand how one man could tear so many lives apart. Tanisha left behind 11 children and 8 grandchildren. Koya left behind a family who remembered her warmth and kindness. Sherelle left behind a partner who had to bury the person she loved because of someone else's rage. When the caskets were carried out, the silence said everything. Outside, families hugged one another, whispering prayers and trying to find strength in the only thing that had survived, their love for the ones they'd lost. But even as they mourned, one question lingered in the air, heavy and unshockable. Could anyone have stopped this? Even with all the evidence, the Facebook posts, the witness statements, the timeline that tracks every move, there's still one question that haunts everyone involved. Why? Why did Javante Bryce choose that night? Why those 3 women? And what finally pushed him over the edge? Sheriff Rick Wells said it himself, he seemed to have an agenda. He knew exactly who he wanted to kill, and he did not have a hard time locating them. But knowing he had a plan doesn't explain what created it. Investigators combed through his social media, reviewed 911 calls, and interviewed family members trying to piece together his state of mind in the days before the murders. What they found was a man in crisis, posting about faith one moment, rage the next. But a motive? That died with him. Here's what we still don't know. What exactly happened between Javanti and Cora? Family members hinted at a relationship that crossed boundaries, but the full truth remains buried in secrets no one wants to speak out loud. Was it love, obsession, manipulation, or something even darker? Whatever it was, it consumed him, and it cost her life. Why did he spare his ex-girlfriend at the Palmetto Trace apartments, but kill his mother less than an hour later? His sister talked him down, convinced him to leave, he listened, he walked away. So what changed between that moment and the Motel 6? Did something happen in those 20 minutes? Or had he already decided his mother was on the list and his ex-girlfriend was just first in line? And then there's the woman in the car. Investigators said she may have been with Javanti during all of the incidents that night. She was interviewed for hours but never charged. So what did she see? Did she witness the murders? Did she know where he was going? Did she try to stop him, or did fear keep her silent? Her role in this story remains one of the biggest mysteries, and one that may never be fully explained. There's also the question of intervention. Javanti threatened to kill his ex-girlfriend hours before the rampage started. His sister saw it, she stopped it, but no one called the police. Would it have mattered if they had? Could law enforcement have intervened in time, or was Javanti already too far gone? And finally, the hardest question of all, could Tatanisha have saved herself? She knew her son was dangerous. She moved her family into a motel to escape him, but she didn't cut contact. She kept calling, kept checking in, kept believing she could pull him back from the edge. Was that love? Or was it denial? And at what point does a mother's refusal to give up on her child become the very thing that costs her life? These are the questions that don't have clean answers. Some of them never will, but they're the questions that matter most, because they're the ones that could help prevent the next tragedy. Let's bring it all together. 1. Javanti Bryce, a 28-year-old former college athlete and aspiring rapper, killed his mother, Tatanisha Scott, his cousin Koya Bryce, and Sherelle Carter in less than 2 hours, posting about each murder on Facebook in real time while thousands watched. 2. His obsession with his cousin, combined with untreated instability and a history of domestic violence, turned family love into a death sentence. The people who tried hardest to save him became his targets. 3. Despite clear red flags, direct threats, erratic behavior, and online confessions, no intervention came in time to stop the tragedy. His sister talked him down from killing his ex-girlfriend, but within the hour his mother was dead. This wasn't just a killing spree. It was a public confession. A digital trail of a man who wanted the world to watch him destroy everything he once loved. Here's what I want to know from you. What's the one detail about this case that doesn't sit right? What question are investigators still missing? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you're into deep dives like this, go ahead and subscribe. We do this every week. Real cases, real timelines, no shortcuts. Appreciate you watching.